From JA to UK to LA and everywhere else now, this is a podcast strictly influenced by Jamaican music, brought to you by Eric Kohler and Junor Francis. Well, if you're driving in your car or you're sitting home alone, the Junior entertain you on his microphone. History of LA Ska. Yeah, hear stories from a guest while we all have a blast. From LA to Jamaica, it's in the podcast. The history of LA Ska. Of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. History of LA Ska, yeah. It's the history. Yes, it is. Of LA Ska. Of LA Ska. It's the history of LA Ska. One more time, yeah. It's the history of LA Ska.
Welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. I'm your host, Junor Francis, alongside my good friend here, Eric Kohler. This series celebrates the ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scene in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with legends and modern-day talent, including those working behind the scene. And plenty of folks are working behind the scene. And so we really and truly want to thank everyone for their support. So, having said that, whether you listen to this podcast series or watch us on YouTube, thanks for your support. And please remember to subscribe and tell as many friends as you possibly can. Share with and tell friends, many friends, without exception. On this episode, we delightfully welcome a legendary radio and TV personality who is synonymous with new wave music. You know him affectionately from SiriusXM's First Wave, and he's a KROQ alumni, known worldwide and in particular here in Southern California. Please help us welcome Richard Blade.
Yes, Richard.
Hey, thank you, Junior. Appreciate it.
Yes, Richard, it's an honor. As we were talking off air, you and your fellow jocks on KROQ were truly the soundtrack to my youth growing up here in Southern California. And the 80s will forever hold such a special place in my heart. And so really want to thank you for all the amazing, I have such fond memories as well of watching you on Video One. So it's a really pleasure to be talking with you.
It was great to be on the air through the 80s as well, because it was such an amazing time for music. So many different styles and genres of music were lumped within that new wave label.
Yes. Absolutely. And we're going to touch on quite a bit of that here throughout this interview. So Richard, let's, first of all, for full transparency, I've read your autobiography, which we're going to talk about as well later, which I love. But will you just, in maybe a highlight fashion, what was it like generally growing up in England for you?
It was good, but I always knew I wanted to leave England. It never seemed the right place for me. I joked that when the doctor held me up as a baby and slapped my bottom to make me cry and said, "Mrs. Shepherd, it's a boy," I went, "Oh shit, it's an English accent. Where am I?" It was not a place I wanted to be. And England was going through a lot of economic problems that the war had caused. I wasn't born during the war. I'm not quite that old, but it was still recovering from all the money we'd had to send to Germany to rebuild. And it was always financial problems at the top of the news, kind of like what we've got going on right now, basically. Right. And because of that, it wasn't a good atmosphere. And I just thought, there have to be better countries than this. And also the other thing, I'll mute my phone. The other thing that bothered me was the constant rain. And I was living in the sunniest part of England, so in the south. So if it was bad for me, what it was like in the Midlands and the North, I have no clue. And so I just wanted to move to sunnier shores and have the opportunity to get ahead. And it was actually the economic climate that I mentioned that really caused the whole punk revolution. You talk to whether it's when you talk to someone from PIL like John Lydon, or you talk to Dave Wakelin from the English Beat, they'll say that they got into music because there was nothing else to do. There was no jobs. UB40, the perfect example of that. UB40 standing for unemployment benefit form number 40. So
right. It was them writing lyrics and forming bands to speak out against what was happening.
Yeah, and their first album was called Signing Off, because they felt they were going to finally be able to sign off the dole in England and not have to worry about benefits anymore because they'd be able to work. And that's how the title of their first album came about.
Right, right. But when you left England, you were in Norway for a little while, right?
Yeah, because I'd gone to college because I didn't know what to do. I had no idea, and I got accepted to Oxford and did 3 years there, and then I stayed on for a fourth year because I was dating a really hot girl. Oh, Carolyn Wilson, what a love she was. And so, and I had no particular goal at the time, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll do an extra year at college, it's fine. And I was DJing at college. I was the head of the social club and the college DJ, and I was DJing at a lot of other colleges and universities in Oxford. There's 27 of them. And so I had the DJ gear, which I borrowed from Westminster College, and would take it to Exeter College and Lady Spencer Churchill and Christ Church and set it up and DJ there. So I got a wealth of DJ experience in Oxford, playing to drunk students, basically. And I enjoyed it. I was having a great time. And so when I left college, I had a couple of choices. I'd taken English and drama, and it was like, do I want to become an actor? I was never that great at acting. Do I want to become a teacher? No, both of my parents were teachers. Hey, I'm making money as a DJ. Why don't I try that? And they needed English DJs in Europe because all the music that was being played over there at the time was English language. It was all Barry White and Donna Summer and Casey and the Sunshine Band and Slade and Sweet. And they wanted the DJs to talk between the songs. It wasn't mixing. It was talking between the songs. And if they talked in Norwegian between two English language songs, it sounded weird. So they wanted English DJs. And so I went over and got hired and spent 2.5 years DJing in Europe and loved it. It was a fantastic time. Yeah.
So interesting enough, on or about how old were you and when did you decide to take it to another level?
When you mean another level, do you mean radio?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, radio had always been in the back of my mind. And even when I was DJing still at Oxford, I would make tapes and send them to the radio. But in England at the time, there was only one radio station that played, let me use the word pop music, and that was BBC Radio 1.
Okay.
There was a few pirate stations, but they were going off the air because the BBC had changed its format and introduced Radio 1 to pacify the kids, because during the 60s until 1967, you couldn't hear the Beatles or the Who or the Rolling Stones or the Beach Boys or the Monkees on the radio in England.
Yeah, I'm
because
familiar.
yeah, because it was the Light program, and the Light program played artists such as Tom Jones and Bing Crosby, and only on a Saturday evening for 1 hour would they play pop music, the current stuff, and kids were going crazy. So it opened a window for pirate radio to start, which was these ships floating off of the British coast more than 3 miles out. So they were in what's called international waters, and they would broadcast in from there. And the pirate radio DJs got a huge following. And I thought, God, that would be great. But it was so hard to break into radio, because once BBC went nationwide with Radio 1, which was not 24 hours a day at the time, it would go off the air at 11 at night and come back on at 6 in the morning. And it was a few years later, it went 24 hours, same as TV used to be that way. Right. And with only one channel, that meant there was a total of 8 DJs for 50 million people. So the odds of some kid who's playing mobiles in Oxford being picked up to replace Tony Blackburn or Emperor Roscoe was slim to none. Right. So even though I'd make the tapes and send them in hoping, I thought, God, there's no way I'm going to break into radio. But I never let the drive leave me. And when I was in Europe, I was in Austria, and I was asked to do a Friday night show for U3, which is Oostenrijk 3, which is their national pop station. And it was fun. It was great. I did 2 months there while I was at the club, and 2 months on the radio on Friday nights. But I was a novelty, an English language speaking DJ in a German language speaking country.
Wow.
And so I thought, if I want to pursue my dream of getting onto radio, I've got to go somewhere that speaks English. So I made a list on a napkin in a restaurant. I was sitting across from the girl I was dating at the time, Taxi, and I wrote the list, and I wrote America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all of which speak English.
Right.
And she said, "Why don't you put England on?" I said, "No, not going back there." So I thought I'd start at the top. I'd started with America, and then there was 3 cities that I was thinking of: New York, Miami, and Los Angeles. New York at the time was just a hellhole. It was just awful. And movies like Death Wish with Charles Bronson were coming out. You know, if you walked into Central Park at night, you were basically taking your life into your hands because you would get mugged. You'd possibly get killed. So New York was rolled out. Miami was not the Miami that we know now with the bustling South Beach. It was a lot more, really, it was just coming back from being a swamp and developing into a big city. And so I ruled Miami out. And then I thought, well, let's start with Los Angeles. It's the home of Hollywood, and it's got a lot of radio stations. So maybe I can find a home there. So
Of course.
it was LA for me.
Yeah. And before we get to your time at KROQ, you mentioned Dave Wakeling. What was your first impression of those two-tone and British ska bands? The Specials, The Beat, Selector, Madness. What was when you first heard them? And then the second question is did you have a chance in the heyday to see them live?
A few of them I did. Loved seeing them live. I've always been a huge reggae fan. When the wife and I went to Jamaica a few times, we went to a reggae concert outside with the massive, big, old-fashioned, big bass bins just giving that beat, and everyone's just moving. Even when they're not dancing, you're still moving. When you're waiting in line to buy the hot dogs and the beer, you're still moving.
Right,
It's
it's
a vibe. And so I'd always liked reggae music, and there was so much reggae music in Britain's culture.
Yes.
And there was no real color bar either. It didn't matter if you were black or white. If you liked the music, you liked the music. The only color bar that existed at the time, and no one in Britain should be proud of it, was the Pakistanis who were there were always put down. You know, they were, "Oh, you guys are no good." But it was funny because the black guys would put them down and the white guys would put them down. It was like there was no division between them. And so I was lucky enough to go and see a few of the bands. Madness, I absolutely love. Selector, oh my gosh, what a great show Selector would put on as well. And the Specials, I mean, they still, I think, hold the record for the biggest selling ska single of all time in Britain, which was Ghost Town. But, Gangsters was fantastic, and so many other songs, nightclubbing. So I always loved that kind of music.
Yes.
And it became a thrill for me to become friends with Dave and Roger from The Beat, and then later, of course, General Public. I was just thrilled about it. And I was so sad when Roger passed. One of the first bands I wanted to put back together when I was doing Bands Reunited. I was producing that show for VH1. One of the first bands I put back together was the English Beat and General Public. And that was
I saw that episode.
Yeah, and Roger was an inline skate instructor at the time.
Right.
So yeah, but he didn't want to do it on camera, the reunion. At the last minute, he backed out, and so we had to strike the cameras. But Dave still went ahead and did it, and then Roger showed up at the gig and got on stage and was toasting with him.
That's right. Saxa was up there, and
Saxa, it was great.
I know. How special.
Yeah, well, I can brag that I keep company with Linval out of Special. And he lives here in the States. He's presently in England now, has a new album out, so he's promoting the album.
Oh, you should get me a copy of one of the tracks, and I'll play it on New Sensation.
Yeah, I'll pass word to him. I spoke to him 2 days ago, and he's hoping that they would provide a budget for him to come to the States and promote the album.
Cool.
So I want to ask you if you could, in fact, talk about, as a matter of fact, in your opinion, what made the British bands so unique and impactful, not only worldwide, but specifically California, where you moved to?
Well, I think in California they broke big because of KROQ. KROQ was a station that was willing to take a chance
Yes.
on bands when they were coming out, and they didn't have to have big record companies promoting them and pushing them. If it was a good song, then we would play it. Rick Carroll, the program director, he would give us our music playlist. We always had 2 open slots every hour that we could play anything we wanted. But Rick said,
anything from the library you could play.
Not from the library. Anything.
Okay.
Anything you wanted.
Wow.
So like Freddie Snakeskin in the afternoon, he would drop in James Brown. He would, which had nothing to do with KROQ.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
Yeah, it was just Rick wanted those cherries in there that would make the listener go, "What on earth was that?" But the other thing he said, which always stuck with me, is you've got the other songs to play, but if you've got something better, you can play that instead. So we could pull out any song that he'd put in and put in something better. But then he looked at you and said, "But it better be better." And my dad was sending me a lot of music from the UK white labels before they're officially released.
Yeah, right.
And he would send over the white labels and I would play them. And I remember Rick coming in when I was playing Talk Talk, their first song, which is Talk Talk by Talk Talk.
Yeah.
I was playing it. He goes, What is this? I said, it's I don't know the name of the group. I just know the name of the song. It's Talk Talk, because I could hear it in the chorus. And I said, it just says Talk Talk on the label, so I don't know what the group is. And he goes, can you leave it for Jed to play? And I said, no, because I'm going to play it tonight at the 321. But I'll put it,
I need it.
I'll put it on a tape for you on a cart.
Right.
And leave that. So he said, all right, do that. And then he got the logs and he wrote Talk Talk every 3 hours on. Now, if you did that in today's radio, if you brought in a record that no one had heard and you put it on the radio, they would walk into the studio and go, could you unplug your headphones and get the hell out of the building? And don't come back.
Yeah.
Rick wanted to go out on a limb and play great things. And he introduced Reggae Revolution, which was every weekend.
Yes.
And that was fantastic. It was a 3-hour reggae show.
Right.
And it was just terrific. And people loved it.
Yes, Roberto Angotti, then Swedish Eagle, and Wayne Jobson.
Wayne Jobson, Mighty Wicked Wayne.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So Richard, you talked about your dad. So how would he discover the music and choose the music to help send to you?
Well, because I'd been DJing for 3 years in Oxford and 2 years in Europe, I was on virtually all of the record company mailing lists. So they would mail to my address in England on Drake Avenue in Torquay. And so Dad would get between 25 and 40, depending the time of year, as it approaches Christmas in England, everyone wants the Christmas #1. So they'd have so many, vinyls released in October and beginning of November. But, and then in the doldrums, maybe just 25. So Dad would get all these records, but because it was so expensive back then to mail them to America, he would listen to every single one of them and choose like 1 or 2 that he really liked and thought was good. And he'd put them in a package and he'd write a little note. I think you'll like this one. It sounds really good to me. The band's got a French name, but I think they're going to be good. And they're called Depeche Mode. And he would find all these, there's a lot of these double-barreled names now. There's Duran, you might want to try them. And then this one is the song Talk, and they send them over. Yeah. And he was right 90% of the time. Yeah, and this is a guy who was a math teacher, but he had a great ear.
And talk about the love and the support and dedication.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I was very fortunate to have him as a dad and not have someone to go, oh, you're wasting your time playing music. Get yourself a real job.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of, so you're, how did the opportunity at KROQ come about?
Well, I was working as a mobile DJ. First a club DJ in LA because I couldn't get, I went, as soon as I arrived in LA, I had about 30 cassettes I brought with me. And I went to all the radio stations and said, look, I've did this show on Utrecht in Austria, and I've been DJing at the clubs across Europe, and here's my resume. And they're like, great, get the hell out of here. And I'm like, what? And they said, we're not going to hire someone off the street for a show in LA. And I said, look, why don't you put me on a Sunday night into a Monday morning, put me on between 1 in the morning till 3, and I'll work for free. You can hear me. Nobody's listening at that time of night. And they go, nope, not even going to give me that, nothing. They'd rather just have a tape roll than give me the chance. So I had the doors slammed in my face, and I'd gone past my return ticket, and I was like, what the hell do I do? I'm going to have to call up and see if mom and dad can lend me enough money to get back. But I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to go back with my tail between my legs. Yeah. And I was pulling records for Sonny Melindres on 710 KMPC, and his nighttime shift, and talking to him, and he pulled out a copy of early copy of Radio and Records before it's called Radio and Records. I forget what it's called, and he said they got an ad for DJs, and I said, well, I've been going to all the radio stations. He goes, no, this is for a club, and I said, oh. And it was Far West Services that owned a bunch of restaurants and bars, and they were putting discos in. And they had like 160 restaurants across America. So I went down, I called them up, and they said, where are you? What's your zip code? What's a zip code? And they explained, and I told them. They said, oh, there's one in San Pedro. So I went down, and I auditioned there, and they hired me. And because they were a big company, I was able to go through their lawyers and get a green card. And so I stayed with them for just over a year. And then I went to the Red Onion chain and became their program director of their five discos. And while I was doing that, I got approached by a lot of people in the club saying, hey, I've got a party coming up. Would you DJ my party? And that's what I'd done in Oxford for 3 years, and they were offering me really good money. They were offering me like $300 or $400 a night to do it. And that was back when I was making maybe $80 a night. And that was I thought was good, but $400 a night. And so I did a couple of parties, and the Red Onion was redoing their gear, and they were pulling out some old speakers and some older amps that had been there for 15 years, and an old mixing board made by a company called Meteor, which I'd worked with in Europe, and they were throwing them out. And I said, you just dump in this stuff? And they said, yeah. I said, could I have it? And they, please take it. That'd be great. Nice. So I put my own mobile company together, bought myself a skill saw and cut up some plywood and built a DJ console and went and did a couple of parties, and they went really well. And I did a party for a baseball player. I'm not into baseball. I think it was a shortstop, but he was well known at the time, called Ron Say. Oh yeah. And so there was someone at the party, a company called Movable Feast. They were catering it, and the person who ran that liked me and said, "Hey, I've got a client whose son has a bar mitzvah coming up." And I went, "Oh, great." I had no idea what a bar mitzvah was. I came from a small town, not many Jewish people there, but I figured I'd been working in bars for a long time, so I would be okay for a bar mitzvah, and had no idea. And so I caravanned with this person from Movable Feast up to a client's house, which was above Paradise Cove, which is a beautiful beach in Southern California. And she had a compound, went through a gate, and there was 3 homes there. She'd bought all 3 homes. And she said, this is the client whose son's going to have a bar mitzvah. Is this Barbara? And I went, oh, hi, Barbara. I recognized her because Barbara Streisand was famous, I recognized her. But I was not super impressed because I was disco dick at the time. I was playing all disco music. If it had been Anita Ward or Donna Summer, I would have been
right.
Yeah. Barbara Streisand was like, "That's cool. Hey, nice to meet you, Barbara. How you doing?" And she goes, "Yeah, my son Jason's going to have his bar mitzvah," and it was a son that she has with Elliot Gould.
Okay.
And yeah, so I said, "Okay, great." And she said, "We're going to tent the open area between the 3 houses, and you'll be set up there." and we'll get all the equipment for you that you need. You tell us what you need, we'll rent it. And I was like, wow, I don't even have to set up. And I said, how many people will be there? And she goes, about 500. And she
Oh
said,
my gosh.
yeah, she goes, I said, great. And she goes, what would you need? And I said, well, just the equipment. She goes, no, money-wise. And I said, okay, 500 people, $1 a person, $500. She goes, okay, done. And I was like, okay, great.
You could have said 5,000.
I know, but it was 500 was a big amount for me back then. My rent, I was three little buildings from the beach in Redondo, and my rent for a 2-bedroom, 1 bath was $275 a month.
Wow.
Now that would be 3 or 4,000 years, so 500. That's 2 months rent. Oh, right. I was happy, but everyone was at the party. Everyone in the business, because it was Barbara Streisand. Everyone. So Donna Summer was there, and Larry Hagman was there. Neil Diamond was there because they'd just done a song called "You Don't Bring Me Flowers" together, and so everyone was in the business, and I got all these celebrity referrals because of that party. And also every bar mitzvah that happened, Jason went to school in Encino and was one of the oldest in his class. And so as the other ones reached that age,
of course,
then everyone wanted the DJ who'd done
you
Barbara
were the
Streisand. Yeah, it wasn't my name. It was the fact that I DJ'd for Barbara Streisand. Sure. So I was literally booked up the wazoo. And then I had to learn what a bat mitzvah was, because the girls were having it too. Sure. And I was really good. I got my horrors down, and I got my sunrise, sunset, and have a nagila. So I knew all the thing,
Sure.
Get the chair, come on. And then I did the celebrity parties and did one for Larry Hagman, because he was wrapping the first season of a show called Dallas that was big. And then I did a couple for Paramount, and Michael Jackson was at one of them. Wow. And then he liked it, and he asked if I would do some parties for him at his house on Havenhurst in Encino. Goodness. So I was making a lot of money just as a mobile DJ, but I suddenly went, am I going to keep doing this all my life? Because I came here to do radio.
Sure.
So I started knocking on the doors again and still getting turned down. I had a much better resume now. Barbara Streisand pictures and a picture of me with Michael Jackson on the cover, on the front page of the Los Angeles Times calendar section. Nice. And they just still didn't care. And then K West, which became Power 106 later, had a contest for the best unknown DJ. And they were a rock station. And so I thought, okay, I listened to them for a bit because I was Disco Dick. And what can I do? And I put together a 10-minute tape and sent it in. And at the end of the 10-minute tape, I did a remix of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. And I thought they're either going to hate it because I'm messing with, a rock god, which is Pink Floyd, or they're going to think, oh, this is kind of cool. And they started playing the remix on the air that I did. And then they announced, then they announced the winners, and I was listening with my girlfriend, and number 3 place, number 2 place, and then the number 1 place, and none of them were me. And then the announcer says, and there are 2 number 1s. We couldn't decide between them. And the other one is Dick Shepherd, which was me before I changed my name. And so I got an hour on the air, and I got $5,000. Which was a huge amount of money. Of course, yeah. But they could have kept the money. I didn't care about it. I wanted the hour on the air. So I did the hour on the air, and the guy who was looking after me was the DJ who should have been on the air at the time, and I took his hour, and he taped my show and gave me, 10 copies, even though my girlfriend was taping at home. And he was one of the nicest humans on the planet. And we lost him about 14 years ago, J.J. Jackson, who shot to fame on MTV.
Of course.
He was just a lovely human being. And I had these copies of the tape. I sent them out, not to LA, but I sent them to San Diego, Santa Barbara, San Francisco, Oakland, Bakersfield. And 2 days after I sent them out, I get a job offer right away from Bakersfield. And they said, come on out. So I went out to the station, and it was Magic 98. I had no clue what it was all about. And the program director, Dave Lawrence, sat me down and said, we want you to do evenings and be our music director. And I was like, great. So can I ask you what you guys play? He said, yeah, we're a hard rock station, because it was a rock tape I'd sent out. And I'm like, oh my God, a hard rock station. And he said, let me put something on for you. And he pulls out Double Live Gonzo from Ted Nugent.
Oh,
and
wow.
He puts it on the vinyl, on the turntable, and drops the needle in the middle of Wang Dang Sweet Poontang and says, that's as mellow as we get. And so I had to learn all this rock stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was all Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Zepp,
Heavy.
and we couldn't play Stairway to Heaven at night. It was too mellow. We had to play that. We day parted. We'd play that during the day, and then we get to Crazy Train at night.
Yes.
And so I did a year. I told them I'll come out here for a year, and I did a year there, and it was great. We got 2 great rating books. And then I quit after a year, and they said, why are you quitting? And I said, I told you, I said, not you, it's Bakersfield. I don't want to live in Bakersfield. And I'm going to go back to LA. And they said, well, we have a station in San Luis Obispo that you could work at called Z93. And I said, can't do it. I said, they're not even a ratings market. I can't step down. I have to keep going up. Bakersfield's number 60 in the country. I have to move up. I can't go to something that's not.
And it's about the same distance to LA.
Yeah, I know. And they said, well, look, here's the deal. Arbitron, the rating company, is going to rate us for the first time, the Central Coast of California. So we will be in the market, 172 in the market, but we'll be in the market. Would you take us through the ratings period just for 6 months? And I went, no, I don't want to do it. And they said, look, we'll fly you out there to this. I went, what? And we'll fly you out in a private plane. I was like, holy shit, that's rock star level, man. But it was a Piper Cub. It wasn't a jet or anything like that. And it's just a hop from Bakersfield to San Luis Obispo. And I landed there, and then it was a great station, beautiful equipment, really nice. And I was going to be program director and the morning drive guy. And they weren't playing rock. They were playing kind of AOR, the middle of the road kind of stuff. Yep. So Christopher Cross was just coming in, that kind of thing, Ride Like the Wind.
Right.
And so I looked around, the staff seemed great, everyone seemed nice, but I still didn't want to stay there because it was a step down. And then the general manager said, let me take you out for lunch. So we walked down the main street, Higuera Street of San Luis Obispo, to this restaurant, and every girl I passed was a supermodel. It was crazy. They were all so smoking hot. And we sat down for lunch, and the general manager talked to me for about 15 minutes. I heard nothing. All I heard was, because my mind's going like that. And then he goes, do you have any questions? And I said, yeah. A little off topic. When we were walking here, there were so many good-looking girls. What was the deal with that? And he said, well, this is a college town, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
And he said, they come here, and the girls come here because we're a beach town and a college town. And I said, so you want me to be the morning drive on the only middle-of-the-road rock station in town that they'll all be listening to? And he goes, yeah. I went, I'll do it. 6 months. Done. So had a great 6 months, and we put together a campaign. I had the idea, Datsun, because they weren't Nissan at the time. Datsun had come out with the Z, the Z.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Z60, Z80. And I went to the Datsun dealer and I said, will you give us a Z? And we'll put you on the air every single hour for 6 months if you give us a car. And they said, okay, we'll do it. And so we were Z93. So we did this campaign, win a Z from Z93.
Right.
And it was a bumper sticker campaign. You put the bumper sticker on every 15 minutes. We would read out a license plate, and then you had 15 minutes to call in. And it'd say it was my car and identify what kind of car it was. And then you'd go into the drawing for the Z.
Sure.
So we did this campaign, and the owners of the station said, it's going good. We just want to be number 2 in the market because number 1 is K-Sly. We know they're going to be number 1 because they're a country monster. Everyone's listening to country up here. If we can be number 2 to them, a good number 2,
right,
we will be happy. So we did this campaign. Then we have the finals on the last day of the Arbitron book. at the Datsun dealer, and the winner was actually there. It wasn't, we had to draw the name, and you go, and it's Chuck Williams. Where are you, Chuck?
Right. And they're
okay,
not there.
we'll call you, and the winner was there. The TV crews were there, two TV crews from the local stations. And he gets in his car, takes off the T-top on it, on the sides, and he's driving around, and it's great. It's fantastic. And then 2 weeks later, we get the ratings. Because now you get the ratings overnight because of computers. Back then, everything had to be tabulated. And we get the ratings, and I'm on the air doing my morning show. And I get the call from the owner, and he goes, "Hey, I need to talk to you about the ratings." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "We just got them." And I went, "Did we get our number 2?" And he goes, "No, I'm sorry, we didn't." I go, "Okay, what do we get?" And he goes, "Well, K-Sly got a 5." And I said, "Okay, where did we come in?" He goes, "We got a 27." He goes, "I want you to go on the air right now and say, you're listening to Z93, the #1 station on the Central Coast." I know. It was like, whoa, I can't believe
Your brilliant idea paid off.
Oh, it was fantastic. That moment. Yeah, that moment was great. And then he said to me, he said, "We're going to have such a great year. This is going to be great." And I said, "What do you mean we?" And he said, "Well, you're a big part of this." And I said, "I told you 6 months, I'm going back to LA." And he said, "You can't leave the #1 station." And I said, "I have to. I've got to go back to LA. I promised myself that." So I went back to LA, got a job doing overnights on KNAC, and then segued that into 5 months later into KROQ.
So you started in KROQ around what?
In June of 1982.
Okay.
June 1982.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And what a crucial time that was.
My goodness.
In fact, I say June 12th, 14 days would be June 26th. So tomorrow will be 44 years ago to the day that I became a full-time employee.
Yes.
Because I went in for 2 weeks, just working for free so they could.
Were you on the air for 2 weeks?
Yeah, I was on the air. Yeah, 2 weeks on the air.
As like a trial.
It was, because all the DJs, KROQ had zero money at the time. And all the DJs had gone to Hawaii because they'd made a deal with a travel agent. And the travel agent said, "Look, we're going to charter a plane. And for every 20 tickets we sell, which would be the plane fare, the hotel, a couple of sightseeing things, for every 20, one of the DJs can go." So all the DJs would go on the air and say, "Hey, it's going to be great. K-Rock's going to be there. Oingo Boingo's going to be playing," which they did. Oingo Boingo's going to be playing. Say, "Do you want to be part of it? Make sure you mention my name. Say John Logic. Say Dusty Street." And they all got sold out. 2 DC-10s went over. And all the K-Rock DJs went. So Rick had to get people to fill in for free.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so he got Elvira to fill in and Mike Ness, etc. And actually, it wasn't Oingo on the first year. It was the next year that Oingo played because Danny was filling in as Moscow Eddie, Danny Elfman.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I was on from 9 to noon. And on my first shift, I do the 3 hours. And then Danny's going to come in for Jed the Fish. And no, Elvira's going to, Danny's going to come in for Jed the Fish and then Elvira for Freddie. And
That's
so I said, thanks for listening and all that. I'll be back tomorrow. And then nobody's coming in. Hello. And I hit the top of the hour ID, KROQ FM, Pasadena, Los Angeles. And I start the next song. And then the hotline rings. And it's Danny goes, "Yo, who's this?" And I go, it's Richard Blade. I'm filling in for Denise Westwood. And he goes, "Yo, I'm meant to be there now for Jed." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And he goes, "I can't get out of the studio. Johnny Vatos has us rehearsing. And can you fill in? Can you get someone to fill in for me?" I said, "I'll fill in. I'll do it." So I stayed another 3 hours on the first day. And then 1 hour before the end of that 3 hours, so after 5 hours on the air, the receptionist comes in and says, "Elvira just called. And her taping for Mistress of the Dark at Channel 9 is going long, and she won't be in today." So I said, "I'll do it." So I did the whole 9 hours. And at 5:25, I'm really tired and really hungry. because there's no food and there's no
Right,
coffee
right.
machines or anything like that at KROQ. I'm really tired, and I'm reading a live commercial for the Parrot Place in Van Nuys, and macaws are on sale this weekend for 45. Hello? Someone walks in the studio. I need to speak to Snakeskin. And it's this older, younger than I am now, but he was an old man there with white hair and that, standing there talking while I'm on the microphone. So I hit the mic off and go, I'm on the mic. I'm reading a live commercial. Hang on 1 minute. So McCall's are on. So I go, I need to speak to Snakeskin now. And I turned it off and I said, give me just 1 minute. Let me finish this commercial. And so if you head on down and you mention KROQ, and where's Snakeskin? You tell me. And I went, get the fuck out of the studio or I will fucking throw you. And he looks at me and he gets out the studio and I go, well, okay, sorry about that. Okay, because I turned the mic off. It didn't go over the air, you know. So I said, sorry about that. A little dead air, and did the commercial. Finished. 6 o'clock comes. Rick Carroll's standing outside the studio, and he goes, hey, thank you for filling in. You know, it's 3 shifts, man. That's a long time. And I said, yeah. He goes, I got someone who wants to meet you. I said, okay. He goes, follow me. So I follow Rick to his office, and sitting behind Rick's desk is the white-haired guy just kicking back, looking like he owns the place.
Okay.
And he goes, Rick goes, I want you to meet Ken Roberts. He owns KROQ. I'm like, oh my God. And Ken Roberts won't look at me. Ken Roberts stares at Rick and he goes, ask the kid why he told me to fuck off. And so Rick repeats it. It was so funny. It was like a comedy, except I was shitting myself.
Of course.
He goes, why did you tell Mr. Roberts to fuck off? And I just stepped forward, not far because it's a tiny office, put my hands on the desk and leaned right into him. And I said, from what I've learned in radio, the only way a station makes any money is by selling commercials. I was reading a live commercial when someone I didn't know,
right,
who came into the studio without any invitation or any permission, starts talking over me.
Absolutely.
And I asked them very nicely 2 times if they would please be quiet and let me finish the commercial. And they didn't shut up. And the 3rd time, I told them to fuck off. And the reason I told them to fuck off is because if I hadn't, then KROQ wouldn't get paid for that commercial.
There you go.
No one is ever going to lose money when I'm on the air, because that's my job, to make money for the station.
And for that, they both should be thankful.
Oh, Ken sat there for about, it felt like 7 years, but I think it was about 5 seconds without saying anything. And he, again, didn't look at me. He just looks across at Rick and goes, I like the kid, hire him. So I got hired on the first day. And
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is wild. Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
That's a great story.
Crazy times.
So let's switch direction now. Who are the earliest new wave acts that you noticed Southern California fans gravitated to most back then, and why?
The early ones, Missing Persons in the really early days, because they had a really fun, different kind of sound.
Yes.
And a great look with Dale Bozio. I mean, she looked really sexy, ex Playboy Bunny, etc. And her voice was very high. So it was very distinctive when you heard them. The Go-Go's, again, female band, big. Oingo Boingo, legendary Southern California band. If they played in Dallas, Texas, they'd sell 400 tickets. If they played in LA, they'd sell out the Forum.
Wow.
That was the difference, because people just love them. The Beat and Madness were massive. And then Duran Duran, Depeche, and The Cure really kicked off in '82 and have not slipped since. They've been, right at the top.
And I'm gonna come back to specifically Depeche Mode and The Cure here in a few minutes. Richard, you were there also. We talked off air about this, but you were there also at the start of music videos. Talk about how much that changed the game, and then talk about your involvement in those various programs.
Well, music videos I knew were going to be huge, because music videos had been used in Great Britain since the beginning of the 70s because there was a show called Top of the Pops.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And Top of the Pops was Thursday nights at 7:25. And it was on the BBC. And ITV never programmed anything against it. They would put on reruns or anything because everyone in England would watch Top of the Pops.
Yes,
Every
massive.
kid had to watch Top of the Pops. You went to a pub, you went to a railway station, the television would be on Top of the Pops. It was a life-changing thing for the bands. And so when the bands knew they had a hit, or the record company thought this song is going to be massive, they would say, look, we want you to do a promo clip. It wasn't even called a music video at the time. We want you to do a promo clip because this is going to be running, you're going to be on for 6 or 7 weeks.
Wow.
And you can't physically be there 7 times because we need you on the road. We need you in Birmingham. We need you in Glasgow. We need you out in Dublin. We need you down in Plymouth. So let's do a promo clip. So the days you can't be there, they can run the clip. And so promo clips, that's why when MTV started, virtually all of the videos they showed were from Britain. It was Rod Stewart all the time. And even as early Beatles, which they dropped very quickly because they didn't want 60s feel. But the British, and Gary Newman, of course, and OMD and all of that, they came out in the 70s, 77, 78, 79. And so videos I knew were going to be big because we always looked forward to seeing them on Top of the Pops, the good ones. And so when I read about MTV starting in August of 1981, I was in Bakersfield and I sent them a tape, never even heard back, nothing. And so I'm at KROQ, and in October of 82, I got a phone call from a guy saying, want you to come in and audition for a video show I'm doing. And that was MV3, and that was on 50 broadcast stations around the country every afternoon from 5 till 6. So the kids could come home from school and watch it, and it was a huge show that would have run for about 5 years if it hadn't been for the guy behind it having a massive drug problem and putting it up his nose. And it got to the point where he couldn't deliver the show. So the show went off the air, and then Channel 9 in Los Angeles came back to me and said, look, our ratings were so big, would you do another music video show? And we've got real producers this time that have their feet on the ground, and they'll make sure it gets delivered. So I did video 1 through till 1989. And that ran. Yeah, that
I remember it vividly.
Yeah, about 30 cities. So it was great. And we tried to do things that MTV wouldn't do. We played black videos. MTV would not play black videos. If you watch Michael, the movie, they talk about how Walter Yetnikoff at CBS was saying to MTV, if you don't play Michael Jackson, then we will pull all our videos. What they didn't say, and I write this in the book, and Mark Goodman, who was at MTV and is a good friend of mine now, he said, I got a problem with what you wrote in the book. And I said, what? And he goes, it was worse at MTV. And I have a thing on my wall right there from Michael Jackson, Thriller.
Oh, wow.
Says to Richard, thanks for everything you did.
Wow.
And so what happened was MTV said it was condensed in the movie Michael. It was one phone call. It wasn't. Walter Yetnikoff called MTV, and MTV said, we're not going to play Michael Jackson. We don't play black artists. And so Walter Yetnikoff said, then you don't get any of our CBS or Epic artists. And Mark Goodman had to go through and remove all of the videos and substitute them for, replay of Pat Benatar or whatever. And this went on for about 2 to 3 days before Glenn Brunman came to us at MP3 and said, I'm at my wit's end. We've got this song and we think it's going to be huge, but we can't get it played anywhere because the artist is black. And I know you know him, Richard, because you used to DJ for him. Would you at least watch the video? So I'm like, well, we'll watch any video. I mean, we don't care about black. We play Soft and Wet from Prince. We're playing Atomic Dog from George Clinton.
Sure.
It's not Well, it doesn't matter to us. It just has to be a good song or a good video. He goes, I promise you, it's a good song. It's a great video. And so Peter was the one who was in charge of getting the videos. We sat down, we watched the video and went, holy crap. And as it's finishing, the guy with the drug problem comes in who owns the show. And he goes, what are you guys doing? Because it's way past time. We should have been home. We said, we just watched this great video. He put it on again. And he goes, okay. He turns to Glenn Brumman and he goes, who else has played it? He goes, nobody. MTV's turned it down. He goes, okay, those fuckers don't count. He goes, we're going to do a new category, the MV3 World Premiere Video. He goes, I want you to cut the intro for it right now. I'll run the camera because everyone had gone home. And it'll be on tomorrow's show. And Glenn Brumman's like, oh, yeah, thank you. I can tell Walter Yetnikoff that. And we played it every day for 2 weeks. And we got so many requests. And the sales of Thriller went up through the roof. And it wasn't Thriller, it wasn't the video for Thriller. It was the video for Billie Jean.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And with him stepping on the paving stones.
Of course.
And then MTV realized they'd screwed up so badly.
So they finally.
They called up Walter Yetnikoff and said, look, here's the deal. If you'll give us the next Michael Jackson video exclusively for a month, so MV3 can't play it, we'll premiere it with a new category called the MTV World Premiere Video, which they did, little rocket going up, not the big one in the logo, but it was an animated one.
Yes, yeah.
And they introduced, so that's the irony. Their very first world premiere video was Michael Jackson, a black artist who now was not that black to MTV, and it was Beat It. And that was their first one. And then when Thriller came out, they got a 3-month.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember when Thriller came out.
Yeah, because Friday Night Videos couldn't play it, we couldn't play it, and but it was they suddenly woke up and they realized, oh, we could play artists like Whitney Houston, and we can play these great. It's not the color that the kids are concerned about.
Yeah, it's quality of
song.
Music. Yes,
and that's the problem. You start telling people what 16-year-olds like when you're 40. You're wrong. 40,
Good point. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, Rich, wanted to ask you, what do you remember about the early days of some of the domestically grown bands like the Untouchable and Fishbone?
I was going to bring up the Untouchables. People say to me at gigs all the time, is there a band that should have been bigger from the 80s? And I always say 2 bands, a rock band and a ska band. Dramarama should have been bigger, a great rock band, and the Untouchables. I said the Untouchables, fantastic ska band. They would do an incredible live show.
Yes.
They did so many shows for us at KROQ.
Right.
And anytime they performed, they never phoned it in. They were delivering on stage 100%.
Yeah.
And I've done quite a few gigs with them recently.
Yes.
And I know they've lost members, which is so sad.
Yes.
So
Jerry and Clyde, right?
Yeah. But they still put on a great show, and Free Yourself and Free Yourself is always one of my favorites. I quite often play that as one of my Friday Forget-Me-Nots on First Wave. But their whole ska set is just something that everyone should see. If they think they like Bad Manners and they like Madness and Selector, then please go and see the Untouchables.
Yeah, Chuck, who's singing lead with the band is definitely one of the OGs and originals.
Yeah.
And I agree, they're amazing. I still remember being turned on to their more of the ballad "What's Gone Wrong" back in the day.
Beautiful,
so good.
It was kind of a precursor for Red Hot Chili Peppers' "Under the Bridge."
Oh yeah, I could see that. Right,
a band can come out with that kind of a song and just great.
No, that's true. Yeah, a band like the Untouchables and also Fishbone influenced so many.
Party at Ground Zero. What an anthem that was.
Yeah, they're pretty much the blueprint for a lot of bands. Untouchable and Fishbone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So true. Richard, did you ever see either of those bands or any of the bands back at the On Club back in the day?
No, not at the On Club.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I never got to
Yeah, you know what?
do that.
Maybe that might have closed around the same time that you started KROQ. So maybe it was right before. But
It was like the Golden Bear was a really popular
okay.
place for a lot of the bands, and I
Yes.
did some. I would do a lot of parties down at Irvine Lakes for these bands, and there was another one that was really new coming up. I wonder what ever happened to them. No Doubt. They were always they were always on the bill, and if you go and see No Doubt at the Sphere,
I saw them. I saw
yeah,
them. Yes.
they've got, as
Epic.
you walk through, they've got their thing. They
Yes.
have a poster from it
Yeah.
with the list of that, and it goes hosted by Richard Blade.
I know.
And it's
I
like,
really loved how that was curated and
yeah,
just the ode to the old school ska and punk and
yeah,
everything back in the 80s and early 90s. Yeah, no, I agree. That was epic. Yes, a little band, no doubt.
yeah. I'll tell you, Ska fans who are like 30 years old who are watching or listening to this must be going, God, I wish I'd been there in the 80s. And
Right,
it
right.
was a great time. It was,
Yes, an
people were.
incredibly wonderful time.
Yeah. Today, people are so divided because of politics, etc. But
Right.
back then, even though, we were all scared when Reagan got in, we thought he was going to be a warmonger and drop the bomb and everything like that. And maybe policies like trickle-down economics didn't work. But musically, everyone got on. It was such a great time. If you like new wave, if you like ska, there were so
There
many
was commonality.
venues.
Yes,
Yeah, I
right.
loved it.
That's
Loved it.
true. Yeah. Junior?
Yeah, it's your turn.
So you touched on this earlier with UB40, but the 80s there were a number of reggae acts, obviously including Steel Pulse and Oswald, and
And Third World, loved Third World
yes,
as
Third
well.
World,
Oh,
absolutely, absolutely. Talk about what you remember about some of those reggae groups, and we talked also about how crucial Reggae Revolution was. But K-Rock embraced and played a number of especially in the latter part of the 80s and early 90s, a number of reggae acts.
well, we always thought reggae was a music form that crossed over to a huge audience. It wasn't just a limited, you can only play it at this time of the day.
Right.
Reggae was so popular for our audience. And I think the stations that ignored reggae were shocked when Red Red Wine took off
Oh my
because
gosh.
Red Wine had come out about 5 years before
Yes,
and
I
done
heard this. This is
absolutely,
great.
yeah,
Yes, right.
yeah, did nothing in America. And then it started to get played in Texas, and then we started to play it, and we were getting so much response that Kiss FM went, well, maybe we should try it, you know. And and the song ends up, hitting number one, and people were going, yeah, but it's reggae. People don't like reggae music. And it's like, are you kidding? Everyone loves reggae
Yeah,
music. And
right.
and then of course, uh, and I don't want to keep harping on about UB40, but in the 90s they were almost bigger than they were in
Oh,
the 80s with so
mass.
many great
Oh,
They're,
yeah.
the
they're
whole
yeah.
Labor of Love albums
Yeah, no,
Yes.
just
you're right. They're influenced. I mean, they were UB40 was absolutely my gateway to Jamaican music, the same way probably Sublime, is a gateway for others, right? But like the impact that UB40 had is just
yeah. I mean, they
enormous.
take a song from Lord Creator
Yeah,
like Kingston Town and
right.
redo it, and it's like, wow, just
Yes. Yeah,
fantastic.
Junior, tell your quick Lord Creator story about that.
Oh, so interesting story. He had fallen on bad times in Jamaica. And so he went back to Trinidad for a while, and Trinidad and Tobago, the place of his birth.
Yeah.
And no one actually remembered him. And so he decided, well, let me come back to Jamaica. So he went back to Jamaica, and he was homeless for a while. And so a friend, a Kingstonian, gave him a loan. And he moved from where he was staying. But the friend knew where he was staying, but decided not to bother him. And man, rough time for Creator. So one day somebody arrived in Kingston, Jamaica, for, I suppose, a representative from UB40. They had money for him. I suppose that's what's that called? What kind of money?
Like
That's
royalty.
Yeah.
royalty. There, yeah, that's the correct definition. Royalty. And so they sent the person, they searched around and found the guy who had loaned money to Lord Creator. And they said, oh, yeah, I know where he's staying, doesn't have a permanent place. So they said, can you find him? Let's go find him. So he found him. And when Lord Creator saw him coming, Lord Creator took off running because he thought he came to collect the money. He said, "No, man, I'm not a mafia. I'm a good man. I know you know you're not working. That's why I didn't harass you for the money. But somebody's here from England with royalty money, and they want to talk to you." So that's what stopped Creator from running, physically running. And so he was able to buy his first house.
Yeah. And we just, and he passed over the last year or two.
Right.
Yeah, Lord
What a shame. And he was a victim of that mentality that they had at the Brill Building in New York. I didn't realize it existed in Jamaica as well, where they were getting artists who would come in, who'd write a song and record the song, and they give them like $400, and that was it. And then
was nowhere.
show them the door, because they got no royalties. They bought the whole record out from underneath them. And that was overturned, thank goodness, I think, when James Brown sued the people at the Brill Building, because he'd had so many songs like that were constantly, It's a Man's World and things like that.
Yes.
Where he was just paid a few $100 and then never saw another penny for it. And it was just awful. And it was.
But the case in Jamaica, I don't think none of, well, I shouldn't say none, very few artists got paid royalty back then. You just get essentially a couple of dollars when the promoter or the producer think,
right,
okay,
whether it was Studio One or Treasure
$2
Isle or any of them, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about exploiting talent.
I know.
Such a shame.
Oh man, yes, and the best talents got exploited.
It's true. It's true.
Some of the best.
Richard, also, so the 80s also saw a number of groups or songs by a few groups that incorporated reggae and ska. They were not necessarily reggae and ska acts, but you had bands that really incorporated it, like obviously Elvis Costello, who worked with the Specials, but Culture Club, The Police, XTC, Blondie. Why do you think so many acts embraced and kind of sprinkled in some of those flavors?
I think it's just because it's such a great genre of music. Clem Burke, who we lost in the last year, the drummer of Blondie, said how much he enjoyed playing a reggae beat, and that was one of the things he really looked forward to on songs like "Tide Is High." He would work it in, and it was. For him, and he said in the beginning it was a little bit of a challenge, but he'd learn to play drums listening to reggae. And you get Stuart Copeland from The Police, who has just such a wide background because of the way he grew up literally around the world. If you read his autobiographies, he's just everywhere. And so would always lean towards reggae. And Sting, I'm sure, enjoyed it. Coming up in Newcastle in the north of England, he would been exposed to a lot of reggae music.
Yes, great point. Great point.
Yeah.
So why did KROQ stop playing reggae? Were you there at the time?
No, I left KROQ in 2000, and they'd cut back on reggae, which was a shame.
Wayne was still on. Wayne was still on then,
but they were cutting back the length of the shows, etc., and aiming for more, I think, a middle of the road rock market. And it was a shame. Then I left KROQ to, I thought it was just quitting the business. I wanted to go to the Caribbean and teach scuba diving because it was one of my loves, Yes. So we used Y2K as our out, the wife and I. We planned it. We bought a house in 97 in St. Martin in the Caribbean, and we let the person who was living there gave her 3 years notice. So she was quite happy about it. And we renovated the house while she was in it. And we moved there in the beginning of May 2000 and just loved it. But the whole thing about KROQ was it was cutting back on virtually everything. And that was one of the reasons I was happy to leave, because I didn't want all the freedom was being taken away from you. We had no choices or anything like that. We could talk to the music director and the program director. It wasn't a closed door, but you couldn't be spontaneous and go, "Hey, I've got the brand new Morrissey. Let's listen to it together on the air," which is what we used to do.
Right.
And
but you did the flashback lunch on Jack FM.
Yeah, and on KROQ.
And on KROQ. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. Yeah. And then fast forward, Junior. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. about when did the opportunity to host the first wave on SiriusXM came about?
Well, I didn't know I was going to come back to LA.
Mm.
And I came back because we had two tragedies hit my wife and I. My wife lost her mother 2 days before our wedding, and she just died, and at 47.
Oh.
I mean, crazy, so unexpected. And then in late 2002, my mother died, and she died in my arms.
Oh, very
And
sorry.
so I said to Krista, you know, life is so short and so fragile. Why don't we go back to LA to spend time with your family while you can? Because I'd lost all my family at that point. And she said, will you be all right with that? And I said, absolutely. I said, I've done what I needed to do. I've lived my life as a scuba diver and driving the boat and teaching and all that. That was something I'd always wanted to do. Let's just go back to LA. And she goes, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. We'll find something. And so VH1, when they found out I was back, so there was a couple of like newspaper articles, Richard Blade back, are you going to KROQ? No, I don't want to do that, but I want to do other things. VH1 contacted me, and I produced both seasons of Bands Reunited.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was doing that, SiriusXM, Sirius, wasn't SiriusXM at the time, Sirius
Right.
called me and said, would you do a show? And I said, I don't really want to, drive into a radio station and have to do that. And said, no, do it from your house. We'll, do it from a home studio. And I said, okay, that sounds cool. What is Sirius? And they said, satellite radio. And I said, great. What's satellite radio? And
Right.
And they explained it to me. And when I started, we had 235,000 subscribers total for all of America, which is nothing. And then 2 years later, they flew me out to New York to DJ at Madison Square Garden for the 1 million subscriber party, which was incredible. We'd hit 1 million.
Yes.
And then they got Howard Stern. And we went from 1 million to 6 million in 4 months. And then when Howard joined and we took over XM, because XM at that point had been leading, but suddenly they were just bleeding subscribers as they were all coming over to us.
Right.
Once Howard joined, and Sirius then had the money to get NHL and NFL and NASCAR and everything. And they put up more satellites, so the coverage was fantastic everywhere you go in North America and Canada. So the subscriber base now is about 36 million, and from 235,000, and on the app it's another 16, 17 million. So it's the biggest radio on the planet.
Yeah.
And so it's been quite a change. And I'm actually, this is my home studio. I'm in right now in the house.
Amazing.
So that's why I do my show in my tank top and shorts. It's great.
Well, so my next question, and then I can almost answer that, because I truly believe what you and your fellow radio personalities do on First Wave has contributed to this. But why are bands, and we talked about this earlier, why are bands like Depeche Mode and The Cure as big, if not bigger now than they were in their heyday of the 80s? Like, it's crazy, right?
It is crazy. Duran
In a
Duran.
good way.
I'll do the perfect example is Duran Duran.
Yes.
1984. They were just the biggest thing around, just massive. They came over to America in 1984. On February the 6th, we did a live broadcast worldwide, which I hosted from the Magic Castle. And that was to take questions from the press, and it was just packed, because the next day, February 7th, they were going to play at the Fabulous Forum 2 nights, February 7th and 8th. And that was deliberate. It wasn't an accident, because on February the 7th of 1964, 20 years exactly before, the Beatles had played on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
So it was the Fab Four becoming the Fab Five. And so Duran Duran played 2 nights at the Forum, sold out the first night, almost sold out the second night, 16,000 a night. 2 years ago, they played 3 nights at the Hollywood Bowl, 18,500 people a night,
Wow.
all 3 nights,
Yeah.
sold out.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Duran are bigger now than they
Right.
were at the peak of Hungry Like the Wolf and Rio and
Interesting.
Save a Prayer. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the same with Depeche Mode. They have not lost any of the fans that
You're
they
right.
had from the 80s. Those
Yeah.
fans have grown up with Depeche
Yes.
Mode. And the
Yes.
same, they've grown up with The Cure. But their kids have come into it. Because
Absolutely.
the kids, when they got their iPods or when they put their music libraries together or when they decide what to listen to on Spotify or look up on YouTube, the number one place they would go to when they were younger, like 7, 8, 9 years old, was their parents' music library
Right.
on the computer.
Yeah.
And they'd
Interesting.
start listening to songs, just bum,
Yeah.
bum, bum.
Yeah.
But they didn't look at the date on the song. They just listened to the song and they'd hear the bum, 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 bum. Oh, I like that beat. Bum, 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 bum. That's great.
Yeah.
And they put Mirror in the Bathroom. I'll save it. Take on Me. I'm going to save it. Running Up That Hill. I'm going to
Yes.
save it.
Yes.
And
Right.
so these kids found these bands, and to them, Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh, her
and
love of Robert
yeah,
Smith. I love that.
I
I
know.
love that song.
Exactly. It's going to be on New
Great.
Sensation on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
So,
it. It's you're right. You're right.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Billie Eilish, the same kind of thing. Her feel of music is the same. And so kids, they don't program directors of radio stations. Most of them these days, unfortunately, come from sales and not
Yeah.
from the music, not DJs.
Mhm.
Right.
So they don't care about the audience. They only care about selling Budweiser. That's the only thing they care about.
Yeah.
At SiriusXM, we don't sell commercials. We have no commercials. We are all subscriber based. You pay for the service. And I'll never forget, just like what Rick Carroll used to say about if you're going to play something that is better than what I've got, you better be better. with Sirius XM, what
I
they
have to borrow
say,
that, Richard.
yeah, with Sirius XM, they say everything you do on the air is for the subscriber. With regular radio, they say everything you do on the air is for the advertiser, not for the listener. But
Wow.
satellite radio,
That's the difference. Yeah.
Valuable piece of lesson I'm learning.
yeah, we
Right.
know our audience is our audience.
Yes. Yes.
With regular radio, their audience is the person who's buying time on the
Right.
station, and
Yes.
that's why regular radio's dying.
And that's a
Unfortunately,
distinctive difference
oh, it's a
between
huge
your audience and
Advertising.
advertising.
yeah, and it's
Wow.
sad because I'm a child of radio. I would love terrestrial radio to be doing well, but it's not doing well. Just like terrestrial television, regular over-the-air television, is not doing well.
It
because
hasn't
they're
not evolved.
No, because they're not taking chances. It's the streamers
Yeah.
who are taking chances and doing incredible things.
Yeah.
The shows on Netflix. What was that one? That Scottish guy being followed by a fat chick. And
Oh,
then
yeah. That was brilliant.
that would never, ever in 1,000 years been on a broadcast television show. Not because it showed any nudity or bad language, just because of the concept.
Yes,
But on
right.
Netflix, it was a sensation,
Yeah,
and you couldn't.
Great point.
Yeah,
Great
and
point.
Not taking chances.
not
Yeah.
taking chances, and people want chances.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, sir. When did you notice that you were just as respected and loved as the new wave artists that you helped to bring to the world stage? That you're on the same level and apart?
You
Well,
are.
It's. I appreciate you saying that, but
And I know you're humble about it.
Yeah,
Look
but
on the wall behind you.
yeah, a couple of times during KROQ in 84, 85, when I do a gig, and people just went nuts, because I was there. But then again, I knew if you did a good job as a DJ, that would happen, because I was a fanboy about some of the DJs
Sure.
that I grew up with in Britain, even though there's only a few of them. And the other time was last February 2025, when I did my first national tour with Howard Jones.
Yes.
And I knew it would work in Southern California, I thought it might work in San Francisco and San Diego, possibly New York as well, because I'd done some private parties in New
Okay.
York, but I had no idea how it would go over in North Dakota and Ohio.
Right.
And I was doing a free meet and greet at all the shows because the promoters had asked me to do a meet and greet. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love meeting the fans. And they said, oh, okay, the fans are going to get a laminate and they're going to get to meet you and they'll get, like 30 seconds with you to take selfies and stuff. And it'll be $150. And I went, what? Sorry? He said, it's $150 for them to meet you. And I said, wait, but they've already bought the concert ticket. And they said, yeah. This
It's an
is
upsell.
an upsell. And I said, well, I can't do that. And they said, why not? I said, look, they're paying for the concert ticket. They're paying for the parking, which is probably $40 or $50. They're paying $25 for a beer, $18 for popcorn. They've got a babysitter at home.
That's a shakedown.
Yeah, they might have taken. Yeah, they might have taken a day off work because it's not their town. If I'm in North Dakota, they've come up from South Dakota. So I'm going to do it for free. And they went, well, you won't make any money off that. And I went,
that's all right.
I don't care. I want to meet the people. And so when I did it in North Dakota, it was work. I mean, it's great in San Francisco and LA. I knew that obviously. And, but in these places in Ohio and North Dakota, when the doors open at 6, I would be there in the lobby, not by the merch booth necessarily. I'm not selling merchandise. It's not like, oh, buy this T-shirt and I'll take this. But often it was just like a tall cocktail table I'd be at and have my Sharpies and there'd be a security guy because at 6:45 they'd take me to get on stage at 7. But the doors would open and people would literally run in and there'd be 150 or 200 people in line to say hi and ask me to tell them a story or tell me a story. And when we got to the East Coast and worked our way up and did North Carolina up through Boston, and people, because of the time difference, they would say at every gig, and it blew me away, it was like stepping back in time, they'd say, at night, we don't allow any phones at the table and the TV has to be off. We just have the radio on with you on the air.
Wow.
That's our family. And I'm
That's so great.
Oh my God. And it actually changed the way I DJ for the last 2 hours of my show because I got in my mind this family sitting around listening to me while they're eating, And so it was one of the most flattering, wonderful things that's ever come into my life. And it was very emotional. And it was a moment in time when, again, and I think about him every day. I wish my dad could be there to see it because he would have loved hearing these stories.
Well, and yeah, your dad was so crucial to the success of new wave and 80s music. It's so wild.
I know it is. It really is so wild. And when I go out on these tours, and I'm going out again July 19th.
Yeah, things can only get better. Tour with Howard Jones, Wang Chung, the English Beat, and
Modern
of
English.
course, Modern English and yourself. Yes.
Yeah, I don't DJ. So I didn't want to DJ because I knew that the bands I was going out with, even back in February, it was Howard Jones, ABC, and me. I knew they were going to bring their A game, and it's just too easy for me to stand behind a console and hit play. Play, back and forth. I didn't want to do that. So I just go out there and tell stories about the 80s and interact with the audience and take questions from the crowd, because I always start by saying that I don't want to just hide behind a console.
Of course.
Because you guys have paid too much money for these tickets.
Right.
And we've got 2 great bands coming up that's going to give you all the music you want. So I don't want to just play stuff that you can find on your phone.
Of course. Right.
I want to find out and tell you some stories. So let's take some questions first. And then I would do, in February, I did how New Wave came about and electronic music. I told the story of that and went back to 1974 and Munich with Kraftwerk, and then went through OMD and Gary Newman and Human League and up to date, and people loved it. And it was funny at the end of the first night, the very first night I did it, I walked off stage and Howard was waiting for me. And it was just like Rick Carroll had been waiting for me that first day. And I thought, oh my God. And he was standing there with his arms folded and he goes, I thought you were going to DJ. And I said, I couldn't do it, Howard. I had to do something special because I know you're going to do something special. And he goes, I've never seen anything like that before. And I went, oh, and he goes, I'm going out again in September. Would you come back out then? Can you book it for me? And I went, Howard, this is just the first night of the whole tour. I'm going to be with you all through February into March. And he goes, I know, but I want you to come out again in September because it was so special. And so I said, okay. And so in September, I did a completely different thing with because I knew a lot of the same.
Right. You didn't want to repeat. Right.
Yeah. And I did kind of a fun brackets contest where I would say, SiriusXM wanted me to find out from you guys which of these two bands we should play more of. And we're not going to play less of one, but we could play more of one. So I've put together a 60-second mix and I'm going to play it for you.
That's cool.
And you have to tell me at the end which one of these two bands, but I wouldn't say the names of the bands. I put the 60-second mix on, I put on hit play, and I put on, you hear, do you really want to hurt me? And then it's a miracle, Church of the Poison, and everyone would be singing along with it because it was, the hooks of the songs.
Yeah.
And the 60 seconds would finish and I'd say, so anyone like Culture Club? They go, yeah. I said, who can we put against Culture Club? And I said, I'm not going to put The Cult against Culture Club because we're not going to do rock. Who would sound like Culture Club and who could stand against them? And people go, look over to their wife and go, who do you think it's going to be? And it was great. You had the audience.
Speculation, right?
And I go, well, let's find out. And I hit the button and you'd hear lies, 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 lies. And Thompson Twins, hold me now. And the audience is going, oh no. Oh, I got to choose.
That's a great concept.
Yeah. And it was fantastic. And we'd go all the way through it. And then I'd finish. And the last one would be U2. And each time I'd have a clapometer on my phone. I'd say, Sirius was so serious about this. They actually gave me money to download an app. $3.99. And I'd hold it up so people could see it was real. And I'd get the applause. And then I'd end it with U2. And I'd play U2. And people were singing, with or without you. And they got their concert lighters going with the flashlights on the phone. And I'd say, this is the stupidest one, of course. No one can stand against U2, the biggest band, arguably, on the planet.
Right.
Who could stand against U2? Well, there was a band before U2 that were arguably the biggest new wave band on the planet. So let's just play 60 seconds of them and see what you think. And they're like, he's an idiot. No one can stand against U2. And you hit the button, he goes, Roxanne, and they're like, oh, the police,
right?
Oh my God. And it would just be fantastic. So, and I got something different planned for this new tour.
I can't wait.
So how long the presentation would last for, Rich?
About between 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the venue and the setup with the band. What it's going to be this time, because I just actually went out for lunch on Tuesday with the manager who's setting everything up, is I'll be on for 20 minutes before Modern English and then 20 minutes before the English beat.
Okay.
Because they're going to share the same drum kit. And then I'll go on for 25 minutes before Wang Chung. And then I'm not sure if I'm coming back again between Wang Chung and Howard.
Right.
So we have to work that out. But I'm going to do, I've got a really fun thing. Again, it's going to be a journey through the 80s. It's going to start in 1980 and it's going to finish in 1990 and it's going to involve the audience. So
Junior, yes, how can I borrow some of these ideas?
You'll be my guest. We'll go see Richard when he passes through Southern California.
Well, if it's at the Greek, I should be using the video monitors as well.
Oh, nice.
So I've got it planned for video and in some of the venues where there's no video monitors for audio.
That's going to be perfect.
And when are you passing through LA?
I'll be at the Greek on July, I think it's July 23rd or 24th.
Yes.
Oh no, the excitement is building.
Yeah. Yes. So you as we near the home stretch here or enter the home stretch, you received quite the accolade. Junior, you had a question about that.
Yes, sir. Describe what it means to be part of the 2024 recipient of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Doesn't get any bigger, right?
No, I honestly didn't know it was coming. I had no idea.
Oh, you didn't
So,
campaign for it?
no, I had no idea it was coming. A guy by the name of Oscar, who was apparently, obviously, a huge fan, had put it all together and sent in the stuff to the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Right.
And so I knew the year before that he'd sent it in.
Okay.
And then I didn't hear anything, and then I know somebody else got it from radio, and I didn't even think about it. So I thought, okay, it's done. I didn't realize it rolls over if the people behind it push it. And so Oscar was like, come on, you've got to get Richard Blade in. So I don't know who else was nominated. I have no idea. But then I get this phone call. I'm in the kitchen with the wife, and my phone rings, and I don't recognize the number. So I'm thinking this was, as you said, 2024. So the call was in 2023. And this is before the phone now says possible spam, if it's a spam call, right? So, but back then it didn't. So I thought, oh, this is a bogus call. So I hit answer and I hit speaker. So, because I'm talking with my wife and I'm, and everything. And the voice comes on. It's a woman's voice. And she says, hey, Richard. And I went, yeah. She goes, are you excited? And my wife looks at me, what is going on here? And I went, who is this? And she goes, you haven't heard the news? And I said, no. And she said, the announcement was just made. You've got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Nice.
And I swear to God, my wife levitated and just was like floating in midair. She was like, oh. And I went, who is this? She goes, it's Anna Martinez with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. And I just want to let you know you've got a star. And you've got 18 months to get it, give us a date that works for you. And I was like, oh my, I said, you're not joking. She goes, no, don't, just do a quick Google search. And so I said, thank you. And I said, can I call you back? And she said, yeah. So I hung up and I Googled and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So it was fantastic. And then when we came up with the date, I asked them if I could get June 6th of 2024. Because that was the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And I've always been a big, it's weird to say the word fan, but I'm a kind of a bit of a historian. And I've always kind of worshipped the guys that were able to go over and face those guns and get off the boat. I would have been a sniveling wreck at the back. And they actually launched. The 101st launched from Torquay, where I grew up as a kid.
Oh, wow.
And I used to row from the landing ramps that they went off, and then the landing craft were waiting for them and took them to the LSTs, the big ships. And then they went across the channel and then went back on the landing craft and went into Omaha and Sword. And so for me, I wanted to be there on June 6th.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I said was, I just want to acknowledge that it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day and to all the heroes from the United States who came over to help free Europe, because without them, I would be accepting this with a German accent. So, and I wanted to acknowledge them. And so for me, it was a thrill to get a star. And I wanted to acknowledge the people that came before me, because I think we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. These days, the shoulders we're standing on would be midgets, the people in power, unfortunately. But back then, they were heroes, fantastic people.
And I guess your father would be extremely proud.
Oh, and he was a serviceman. He was he was a captain.
No, but also your accomplishment, getting the star.
Well, I know. Again, at the last thing I said, Junior, at the award ceremony, is I was between Bob Odenkirk, who played Saul in Better Call Saul.
Oh, nice.
And Bob, and the one who played Walter White fantastic actor, brilliant actor.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I was between the two of them, the star, and
Good
it's
company.
on Vine Street, right outside of the Avalon, which will always be the Palace to
Of
me.
course,
I did gigs with the Untouchables there,
Yes,
and
yes.
the last thing I said was, I wish my mom and dad were here right now, but one thing they wouldn't understand is why I am so happy to be between a crooked lawyer and a meth dealer. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Richard, we do want to encourage everyone to read your because you're such a wonderful storyteller, and as I mentioned earlier, I loved your memoir, World in My Eyes. So I do want to encourage everyone to pick that up and read that. My childhood friend Brian Adair gave that to me, and I loved it. You autographed it. He was at one of your signings,
Oh,
so he gave it to me as a gift. But um, lastly, I also want to share how condolences. I know that your longtime friend and fellow DJ Jed the Fish passed last
Jed.
year, and the tribute that you all did at KROQ Studios was just so special to see all the alumni and tell stories, and I really enjoyed that. And I know that I was not alone
Yeah,
in enjoying that.
I miss Jed a lot when I was at the Greek Theatre last year with Lost 80s Live. I was not doing the same thing. I was just kind of announcing bands and
Right.
filling time, for a few minutes. But I came out halfway through and I changed my shirt and I came out and I had Jed the Fish on. I said, Jed, this one is for you, buddy. You should be here
Yeah.
with us today.
That
So, yeah.
infectious laugh too.
Oh, yeah, he was great. And he always messed with the names of the bands. It was never Oingo Boingo. It was Ingy Bingy.
Right, right.
I loved Jed. Loved Jed.
I mean,
Yes, sir.
Richard, what a career.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And what a journey and such a important part of music that you've played and continue to play.
Yeah, I always say I was really lucky to be in the right place at the right time for
I
once
was
in
going
my
to say
life.
that.
Yeah.
Right place, the rightness of time, rightness of place.
Yeah, I was, KROQ was breaking, but it could never quite find its feet. And then when I joined, it was fantastic for me. And I was like the missing piece of a great jigsaw puzzle because they were playing so much British music.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was a British guy. And
Yes.
it just lent the authenticity to it. So we all
Right
clicked.
place, right time.
They had, as you said, Jed the Fish. They had Freddie Snakeskin, Dusty Street, Ramondo. It was just all the right people. And for me, because they were so great, all of the DJs were so great. It
Yeah.
just made me step up my game. I couldn't ever go in and just phone in the show.
Right. I'm
Always
sure.
had to go in and leave everything behind in the studio.
Yes. I just stumbled upon this. This is one of my all-time favorite
Oh, yeah.
concerts at the Rose Bowl. Depeche Mode, OMD, Thomas Dolby. I mean, that was
What year was that, sir?
88, right?
Yeah, it was last Thursday. It was the
Right.
anniversary.
That's right.
And so on my theme Thursday, I had 5 live songs, all live. I had Wire doing Kidney Bingos. I went into Thomas Dolby doing She Blinded Me with Science, OMD with Enola Gay,
Yes.
and then 2 live tracks from 101 from Depeche Mode.
Yes.
Behind the
Incredible.
Wheel, and then the last song they did, Enjoy the Silence. Not Enjoy the Silence. Everything Counts.
Oh, yes, yes,
And
yes.
that was all mixed as a concert, and people loved it. Particularly when I went into the opening, and I'd taken something Dave said after the second song, and I put it in at the beginning of Behind the Wheel, where he goes, "Good evening, Pasadena."
Now that you just said everything counts, I vividly remember seeing that video. You play that video on
Yeah.
on Video One, right?
Oh yeah, we played Everything Counts
Yeah.
a lot, and that was the song that they finished with throughout the 1980s as the last song of their encore.
That just came back to me,
Yeah.
remembering that. Yeah.
So, Richard, how do you go about preparing for your shows?
First thing I do is look at the date and then see whose birthday it is, what events happened on that day, what albums or singles were released on that day, so I can try and tie it into the listener so they go, I remember buying that album. That was
Mhm.
41 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that kind of thing. And so I try and get all that in place and make it about the music rather than about me.
Right.
And then I look at the tours coming up. If I'm playing Elvis Costello, he's going out on the road in September. I can talk about that. If
Yes.
I'm playing Psychedelic Furs, talk about the fact they had to reschedule their tour because Tim Butler had an unexpected medical emergency and had to have triple bypass. There's the two Butler
Wow.
brothers in Psych Furs, Richard
Yes.
Butler on the mic, Tim Butler on bass, and they founded it together. So it just keeps the music alive because rather
Yeah.
than saying, "Oh, back in the day," you're saying,
Right. You
coming
can
up,
tie it. You can tie it to
yeah,
something. Yeah.
they're going to be here. They're going to be doing that. They just did that. We've got a new album coming out. Sparks just released their first ever live concert album
Yeah, I saw
called
that.
Live from the Moon. And so people are like, it makes the music still relevant to them.
It's true.
Yes. Mhm.
Fascinating.
Well,
Fascinating.
yeah, I learned a lot.
Junior can apply this to his handful of radio shows that he does. So
There you go.
and I want to thank our mutual friends Jen and Andy Richter for linking us here as well.
Mhm.
Love them. Love them both.
Yeah, us too. But Richard, really appreciate you taking the time
I
here.
wanted to ask him though, if any closing thoughts before. Any closing thoughts from you, Richard?
No, but the main closing thought is keep that reggae music alive.
Yes.
There's
Yes,
still
sir.
not enough outlets for it. We have Tough Gong Radio
Yes.
on SiriusXM, which
Mhm.
is fantastic. And I love to hear a reggae beat. And when my wife and I are on vacation in the Caribbean, we love the reggae music. And we would go from St. Martin over to Anguilla, which is only an 8 mile crossing. And they would have a lot of reggae music playing there
Right.
because they'd have certain days during the summer when the tourists weren't there because the summer is actually the low season. And
Right.
winter is the high season in the Caribbean. And all the boats would go there and we'd have the music playing. And in the early days, one of the artists who come over, this is the beginning of the 2000s, just as he was starting to break, was Shaggy. Shaggy
Oh,
would put
yes,
on some
yes,
great shows.
yes.
We loved it.
You
Yeah.
know, Shaggy, I know, I
Yeah.
know. But you're right. Yeah,
No, it's larger than life.
Tough Gong
Yeah.
Radio definitely keeps it going. And Junior and I are good friends with Russell Gerlach, who comes and sees you sometimes in studio as well when you
Oh,
do
cool.
your live occasional show. So you're on First Wave
Every day
every day. What time? What window?
in the afternoons.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Drive
So
time.
tune in on channel 33 and I'll be there. So
Absolutely.
Nice.
that'll be great.
Yes. Well, Richard, thank you again for taking the time here. I know that you're super busy. We're going to see you on tour this summer as part of the Things Can Only Get Better tour with Howard Jones and Wang Chung, English Beat and Modern English.
Yeah, you will love it because all the
Yeah.
bands are going to be stepping up their shows because
I'm sure.
Howard, who's at the top of the bill, has a fantastic show that he does. And once the other bands see how good it is, it's like, okay, quick, we have to
We
rethink what we're
gotta
doing.
step
We can't phone this in. I watched Martin from ABC after the first show in February last year, and Martin always does a great show.
Love
But
ABC.
once he saw Howard, he was like, okay. And we were talking, and I said that Valentine's Day is coming up, Martin, and you have a great song on the Lexicon of Love called Valentine's Day. Because I haven't played that song since '83.
Brilliant.
And I said it would be a great one to drop on Valentine's Day. You'd get the whole audience going. And sure enough, he brought that one out and then did it for the rest of the tour. So
Oh, that's great.
it was great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we reach our destination, yeah.
Yeah, we all do
Yes,
eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone for the ongoing support. And please subscribe to this podcast series on our YouTube channel. Follow us at History of LA Ska on Instagram and join our Facebook group. This series is produced by my good friend here, Eric Kohler, for Rock Radio.
Yes, Junior,
Eric?
thank you. Richard, honor and a pleasure. Thank you. We'll see you soon and really appreciate everyone's ongoing support. And as we'll leave you this time, like always, please do your part to preserve and celebrate the scene. Come on out, put on your dancing shoes and enjoy yourself. So much well and be well. Take care.
Take care.
All right now.
That's it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.